because most people function at surface level. They lack an understanding of a lot of the things that go on and exist in the human experience when you live your life below the surface level, so to speak, where you seek for deeper, more profound, spiritually fulfilling types of experiences. And the dark night of the soul is a profoundly dark and spiritual process that only some of us are ever going to go through. And it's almost always experienced by people who are actively on some sort of a spiritual journey in their life. Not only is it profoundly dark, but it's a profoundly painful and dark experience that I would guess most people try to run away from or cover it up or put on a happy face or something. Yet it's still there. It's always present when you're in it. And like grieving, it doesn't go away until you've gone through the whole process. And that will be different for everyone, because everyone's at different levels of consciousness, development, evolution as a being, so to speak. If my memory serves me, there was this Spanish Catholic or monkish dude, St. John of the Cross, who was the one that came up with the phrase or the term, the dark night of the soul, based off of some of his own experiences, I believe. I think it was like, 1500s or 1600s where that phrase was even given to us as a label to put on the experience. And I think what those people that dwell at the surface level don't fully understand, and well, they just can't, is that the dark night of the soul literally just tears your life apart. It's a period of utter spiritual desolation, totally and completely disconnected from spirit, from whatever people call the divine. In a lot of cases, you disconnect from friends and humans, and it's a level of emptiness where you feel separation from everything, like everything. And you can be or feel total hopelessness, completely and totally lost and consumed with the deepest depression or melancholy, if you will, on steroids. It's like a spiritual depression, if you will, but it's not actually depression, even though depression does have some of the hallmark signs or traits of the dark night of the soul, or the dark night of the soul has some of the hallmarks and traits of a deep, profound, crippling depression. There was a explanation I heard or read, someone doing their best to describe it, saying that it is an experience of losing touch with God or your creator, whatever that actually means, the grand string puller in the sky, and being plunged into the abyss of godless emptiness. And that's not necessarily a religious context. It's more a spiritual context. And most people, not all, but most people consider God, creator, to be their spiritual daddy in the sky, so to speak. In the dark night, the meaning of life just is lost. The feeling of being betrayed by that creator or that spiritual guide or spiritual daddy in the sky or whatever the hell it is. It's like a level of being forsaken by what put you here, by the divine, by life itself. And for me, I sat in the abyss for a year and a half, to the point where it was so dark, so heavy and so dark. I quite literally lost myself as a 47-year-old man, 47, 48. And kind of had that moment where I thought to myself, fuck, I thought losing yourself was one of those things like 16-year-olds go through. I didn't really know what it was. I had no idea what losing yourself was until it actually happened to me. And then I began to realize what a profound journey it is back to finding any resemblance of the self that you used to be. And like I said, the dark night of the soul is not the same as depression, even though depression shares many of the same characteristics or character traits of the experience of the dark night. On some levels, you can treat some of that depressive stuff that's just depression and not a dark night with medications for those who are into that sort of thing, where that shit doesn't apply when you're in a dark night of the soul. You are in a spiritual purgatory, and there ain't no medication that'll help you with that. Depression would be maybe something that could be tied to some biological or chemical imbalances, heavy traumas, mental illness, or something like that. The dark night of the soul isn't the same as that at all. When you go through a dark night of the soul, that can't be treated or cured with therapy or drugs or psychiatry. So it induces a feeling of ever-present dread and hopelessness and despair, because no one can save you from that darkness. And that adds to the loneliness and the anger and the confusion and just all of it, because it translates into a level of spiritual desolation, spiritual decimation, a psychological desolation, when you're quite literally in purgatorial levels of suffering that are so bad, hell would be a bit of a vacation. And as I've looked back on it, the dark night brings forth some really deep-seated changes, some profound inner evolution, a spiritual transmutation or transformation of, I guess you could say, the inner you. And you can't stop it. You cannot stop it. Most of us have no idea that it's coming until its onset, and for a lot of us that is like getting hit by a freight train, a very big one, going at full speed. And there's a lot of momentum behind that train, so when it goes by and grabs you, oh, it just pulls you into that darkness. And for me, there was a massive, deep sense of sadness, despair, and I started analyzing myself, my life, the world, humanity, the world as a whole, all that stuff. And what's come forth from me from that was my analyzing the roots of human suffering, all of the know thyself stuff that I've talked about, talking about the non-physical and corporeal components of us, and then equating it to what I knew about how the world worked. All of that stuff has come forth from me through the analyzation that I did because of the level of suffering and despair that I was in, because of this deep spiritual process that I was forced into. And when you think about it, it came a little over a year after I came out of the Amazon jungle. The second and third time that I was there was to apprentice with the maestro shaman that I met. That's fair to say it's a very spiritual process. It's a very spiritual endeavor to do what it is that I did. I come out of the Amazon in about a year, a little longer than, no, it was about a year and a half. It was about a year and a half after I came out of the Amazon. Boom, the Jezebel reared her head, her mask came off. And once that first domino gets flicked, there's no stopping the inevitability of what that process is going to be. The only thing that you can do is resist or surrender. That's going to determine, to the degree that you will have any ability to determine it, what that experience will ultimately be for you. If you resist and fight it and pretend that it's not happening, or whatever it is you're telling yourself, you're going to go through fits. It's going to be like trying to swim up current in a river that you can't get out of, thinking that you're going to make it back to the point in which you got tossed into the river. And that's never going to end well, and you're just going to get to where you're inevitably going to be a lot more tired when you swim above or swim against the current. So when I finally realized that, I just stopped swimming and kind of started floating and let the process take me to where it was going to take me, because there's no controlling it at all. None. You are fucking in it. Just like if you smoke DMT or you take some ayahuasca and that portal opens and you're going for a ride, you can't stop it. You can't control it. You can't direct or guide. There's no navigation system. You're just in it. And it is like the most hellish, transmutative, alchemical process that you will ever go through. It is like a living alchemical transformation. And when you consider what alchemy is and the alchemical process, from the beginning to pulverizing the material, and then, all the processes, the vitriol, the acids, just the whole thing, to the point where then you put it in the furnace and burn it down and pull the dross from the top, and then, the end, calcination, where you're pouring out the pure material and it coagulates and comes together and forms whatever you're forming it. That whole alchemical process. To be a living, conscious, sentient, aware being, to go through that consciously, that's a really, really challenging fucking thing to go through. And it just intensifies. It intensifies when there is no help or support for you. And the dark night is very much I guess you could say it's almost, or it has components of it that are very introspective and philosophical in nature. And for me, there was a lot of existential reflections about what is the life for? Why am I here? My own purpose, the purpose of this grand carnival show, and then tearing apart the layers of reality, our existence, our creation, our engineering, and all of that stuff. It's a lot different than what you would call depression, because depression is usually, it's fairly self-centric, where it's a lot of, woe is me, I feel bad, for whatever it is that gets you there, but you tend to focus on that kind of stuff. And while I had some of that present, because, something actually happened in life that caused all of this, For me, it became very much an existential reflective process, or an existentially reflective process. And see, when depression ends, there's really not a whole lot different in you or your life or your beliefs or your values or your habits. But when you go through the dark night of the soul, everything about you changes or transforms and becomes different than it was. Your values change. Your beliefs change. Even some of your habits. You step into knowings about things that you will never be able to logic and reason away. And it's through that pain and suffering that you come to know those things. It's the reason I've said there is nuggets of learning and inner evolution, things that you could never pay for with all the money of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined. You couldn't pay for those things without going through these deeply spiritual, dark, transformative processes. And it's like those nuggets of wisdom are, well, what you get for going through the process. And for me, I have picked clean the bones of the process to ensure that I got every nugget that I could get out of the process, because I'm not trying to go through that shit again. And if I do, it's not going to be for the same damn reasons, that's for sure. You can't do that to me more than once before I'll rectify the causes of what would induce that shit. And as I look back on the process, it very much parallels an alchemical process and the absolute disintegration of you. I mean, this shit leaves a real lasting impact on you. It will change you completely, and you will shed layers of yourself. Whatever meaning you thought life had before you got sucked into a dark night, that'll be gone. All of your beliefs will be shattered. Your perceptions will be destroyed. And let's not forget what happens to your ego. Humble pies. Anyone? Notice I didn't say a slice of humble pie or a single humble pie. I said humble pies, because your ego is force-fed copious amounts of humble pie while you're in the dark night of the soul. So there really can be benefits to suffering if you suffer well. If you don't suffer well and you don't analyze the experience and take everything from the experience that you're forced into, well, it's a shame, because something about life is going to probably make it happen again and again and again until you begin to get whatever spiritual lessons you're supposed to get out of the process. And just like with muscles, resistance makes them grow. And when you're working with the resistance, the next day, lots of pain, lactic acid, things hurt. But we understand the concept of the resistance, or a butterfly. It has to struggle to get out of the cocoon. And there are aspects of that butterfly's struggle that strengthen it as it emerges. And if you were to actually free that butterfly from that struggling process prematurely, the butterfly probably wouldn't be able to fly, because that period of struggle that strengthened its legs and its wings, like a tempering of sorts, wouldn't have occurred. The dark night of the soul is like having the ground underneath your feet just fall away, or the rug pulled out from underneath you. It's like being absolutely blindsided in a way that you would have never expected, that you never saw coming. And there are some points of it that are absolutely terrifying, because you are getting sucked into or pulled into a level of darkness. And for me, it was like purgatory that I never knew possible while you were still alive. It can be quite scary, because it's almost like, there's some, I don't know how to even phrase it, some evil fucking force that's just like latched the fuck onto you. At least that's what it feels like. I think you could ultimately call the dark night of the soul a process of spiritual awakening, for sure. And for me, it was something I got tractor beamed into due to simply a life experience with another human being, the Jezebel, the Canaanite. But looking back on it, I can definitely say that it was a process of change, of transformation. Some of you may have heard me refer to it as my second awakening, because my first dark night of the soul 19 years ago was my the actual catalyst for my awakening, pulling my head out of my ass and no longer being a dumb animal. I was a dumb animal for, 32 years of my life. Then that woman broke my heart. And a year later, when my dark night of the soul was over, I was awake. And I knew that I was awake. I guess you could call it a spiritual alchemy. And through that process, things dissolve, things break apart, and you get to see what's truly there. And to the degree that it breaks you down and literally disintegrates you, you are shedding away all of your old stuff. And then the process of reforming yourself Well, yeah, that's some challenging, hard work, and not everybody's up to the task. I'm not quite sure that I'm completely up for it or was up for it. It would have been easier, so to speak, if something would have said, hey, this is going to happen. Didn't have to tell me what. Just, you're going to go through your own living purgatory. It's all for your benefit. Don't resist it. And kind of just laid that on me. I could have at least mentally, emotionally, psychologically prepared for something that was going to be hell. Similar to a Navy SEAL that knows what he's going after. He knows what he's going after. So that when he joins buds, he, to the degree that these men can do it, they suck it up. They push through all the pain because they know what they're getting. See, we don't get any of that down here. This just happens. And, well, it's anybody's guess what we're going to be or become on the backside of it. But you definitely will be broken down to pieces, to raw material. It's definitely a very different experience than your traditional normie will have. Some people consider it an initiation or some sort of an initiatory process. And what it's going to mean for everybody is going to be very different because it is a profoundly complex and very deep experience that will change you in most ways that are important. It's excruciatingly painful, both mentally, well, both. It's mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. It's a level of pain and suffering that's unlike anything you've ever experienced before. I got to the point where I didn't want this life anymore. And that's not uncommon. And the strange thing is I wasn't suicidal. I was in such a level of darkness that if I was suicidal, I probably would have, done the thing. But the strangest thing is I wasn't suicidal. But I did not want this life. I wrestled with things like why I felt things so deeply, why I was so different from everybody else, why I cared so much for other people and perfect strangers in a world that does not care about me. And there's definitely a lot of victim mentality in that experience because this shit is happening to you. It is being forced into your life. And it becomes a challenging thing to get out of that victim mentality because you're on the receiving end of something that's something imposed on you. That's being victimized. You're on the receiving end of an experience that you can't stop. Again, victimized. It destroys your life. Again, a victimization. There's a lot of actual context for being a victim of the experience that you can't stop, you can't thwart, you can't prevent, you can't reverse, you can't prevent the things that are going to get destroyed, and you can't. So you are quite literally, in the most literal sense of the experience, a victim of the process. And when it is a living hell, I mean, it only makes sense where this, yet so many people out there, I call them the dumb dolts, the unthinking bipedal herd animals that are stuck in their fucking ego and sense of grandness and how great they are, almost want to shame people, if you will, and criticize them because of the quote-unquote victim mentality. Yet they don't actually have the cognitive capacity, the intellectual ability to recognize, and they're not spiritually awake enough or aware enough to have any fucking sense at all about something like the dark night of the soul. Now, that can happen to you, but some people will say, oh, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And that's splitting hairs and being stupid at a much higher level of perception and our experience and existence maybe. But that nothing cares that's going through, none of us cares that's going through the dark night of the soul when you're in fucking purgatory, when you're in this gnashing of fucking teeth. For me, the loneliness was unbearable for a long time. And then I had this aching heart for the woman, the Jezebel filth, like sewer dweller that started the whole process. The pain, the betrayal, it just lingered and lingered and lingered. And for a while, it just kept getting darker and darker and darker and darker, ever present, always taunting at me and laughing at me, and just nothing but negative emotional energy, negative emotional despair. Just, oh, fuck, man. And for me, I was so bitter about the fucking experience, I didn't, quote unquote, look to God. Oh no, in fact, I knew that this was imposed upon me by something in that context that we would call that, and I was quite fucking pissed. Still am. I still feel very much like, how fucking dare you do this to me without telling me, without collaborating with me, without any fucking thing at all? How fucking dare you? How fucking dare you? And that dark part of my shadow that I've talked about, that part of me, and even me, I want to go find in what did this to me in my life and make it pay a price that it never thought possible. I'm still there, still feel that way, and still would do it in a fucking nanosecond if the opportunity was available to me.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.